Have you ever felt the crushing weight of failure? That moment when all your efforts collapse into dust? The project rejected, the relationship ended, the promotion denied. That sinking feeling in your stomach as you realize things didn't go as planned. What if I told you that these very moments, the ones you've been taught to fear and avoid, might actually be the hidden doorways to your greatest achievements? In a world obsessed with highlight reels and curated success stories, failure has become the great unmentionable. We hide our failures like shameful secrets, creating a psychological prison where we become terrified of taking risks. But what if this avoidance is the very thing keeping us from the success we seek? Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the pathway to success. This counterintuitive truth has been understood by history's greatest philosophers and demonstrated by its most accomplished individuals. Today, we'll explore why accepting failure, embracing it, learning from it, even seeking it, might be the most powerful shift you can make in your pursuit of a meaningful, successful life. Think about your relationship with failure right now. Do you see it as an endpoint, a judgment on your worth, a confirmation of your deepest fears about yourself? Or do you see it as information, as feedback, as a necessary teacher on the path to mastery? Your answer reveals not just how you process setbacks, but how likely you are to achieve your highest potential. Our cultural narrative around failure is deeply flawed. From early childhood, we're conditioned to avoid failure at all costs. The education system rewards those who give the right answers and penalizes mistakes. Social media encourages us to display only our successes while hiding our struggles. Even our language betrays this bias. We don't experience failure, we suffer it. We don't learn from failure, we overcome it. As if failure were some terrible disease rather than an essential part of the human experience. This collective aversion creates what psychologists call failure avoidance, the tendency to avoid situations where failure is possible. We choose easier goals, stay within our comfort zones, and abandon pursuits at the first sign of difficulty. The invisible weight of potential failure holds us back from our most ambitious dreams and boldest actions. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher who understood human psychology with remarkable depth, would recognize this pattern immediately. Nietzsche introduced the concept of amor fati, the love of fate, including all its suffering and failures. My formula for greatness in a human being, he wrote, is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it. What Nietzsche understood was that resistance to life's difficulties, including failure, creates unnecessary suffering. When we fight against what is, we expend enormous psychological energy that could otherwise be channeled into growth. The person who cannot accept failure becomes paralyzed by the possibility of it. The person who embraces failure as part of the journey gains an almost supernatural resilience. But how do we develop this relationship with failure? How do we transform from failure avoiders to failure embracers? This psychological alchemy doesn't happen overnight, but begins with understanding failure's true purpose. Carl Jung, whose depth psychology explored the human psyche with unparalleled insight, might view our fear of failure as part of our shadow, those aspects of ourselves we reject and deny. The shadow, Jung wrote, is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. Our refusal to accept failure as part of life creates a split within us. We identify only with success and achievement while disowning the inevitability of setbacks and mistakes. Jung would likely suggest that integrating failure into our self-concept, acknowledging it as not just inevitable but valuable, is essential for psychological wholeness. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, Jung noted. The pain of failure becomes the doorway to deeper self-awareness. Consider the case of Thomas Edison, who famously made thousands of unsuccessful attempts before inventing a working light bulb. When asked about his failures, he reportedly said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This reframing transforms failure from an endpoint into a data point. Each failure provided information that moved him closer to success. Or consider J.K. Rowling, who before becoming one of the world's most successful authors, was rejected by 12 publishers. She described her failure, being divorced, unemployed, and at rock bottom, as stripping away everything inessential and allowing her to focus solely on writing. Failure, she said in her famous Harvard commencement speech, gave me an inner security that I had never attained by passing examinations. What these examples reveal is that failure serves multiple purposes on the path to success. First, it provides essential feedback. Without failure, how will we know what works and what doesn't? Second, it builds resilience, the psychological muscle needed for any significant achievement. Third, it often redirects us toward more suitable paths, forcing a reassessment that success never would. And perhaps most profoundly, failure humbles us, strips away ego, and connects us with our shared human vulnerability. But knowing this intellectually isn't enough. How do we practically transform our relationship with failure? How do we move from knowledge to embodiment? The first step is to recognize failure's subjectivity. What constitutes failure is largely a matter of interpretation. Is a rejected manuscript a failure, or simply part of the process of finding the right publisher? Is a failed relationship a failure, or valuable learning about your needs and boundaries? By questioning our automatic labeling of experiences as failures, we begin to loosen failure's psychological grip. Tell me in the comments, what's something you once considered a failure that, in retrospect, led to unexpected growth or opportunity? Your story might help others reframe their own experiences. The second step involves what psychologists call normalizing failure. When we understand that failure is not just common but universal, that every human being, no matter how accomplished, fails regularly, we remove much of the shame and stigma. The most successful people in history aren't those who fail less. They're those who fail more, learn quickly, and persisted despite setbacks. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or Superman, is relevant here. This ideal human doesn't avoid difficulty or failure, but rather embraces challenges as opportunities for growth. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger, Nietzsche famously wrote. Each failure, properly embraced, becomes a stepping stone toward our highest self rather than evidence of our inadequacy. The third step requires deliberate practice in failure-friendly environments. Start small. Where in your life can you take low-stakes risks where failure won't be catastrophic? Perhaps it's submitting a piece of writing to a publication, asking someone out on a date, or learning a new skill where you'll inevitably struggle at first. By intentionally putting yourself in situations where failure is possible, even likely, you gradually desensitize yourself to failure's sting. Some of the world's most innovative companies have institutionalized this approach. Google's famous 20% time policy, which allowed engineers to spend 1/5 of their work week on projects unrelated to their job descriptions, explicitly accepted that many of these side projects would fail. The result? Gmail, Google News, and AdSense, some of the company's most successful products, all emerged from this failure-tolerant space. The fourth step involves developing what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. In contrast to a fixed mindset, which views talents as static traits, a growth mindset sees failure not as evidence of unchangeable flaws, but as opportunities for development. In a growth mindset, Dweck explains, challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So rather than thinking, "Oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses," you say, "Wow, here's a chance to grow." This mindset shift creates a dramatic change in how we approach challenges. Instead of avoiding situations where we might fail, we actively seek them as opportunities for growth. The question changes from will I succeed or fail to what will I learn from this experience? Machiavelli, whose strategic insights have influenced leaders for centuries, understood that setbacks could be leveraged for advantage. In The Prince, he advises that a wise leader never misses the opportunity to master adversity. While Machiavelli's advice was directed toward political power, the principle applies to personal development as well. Those who can extract wisdom from failure gain an edge that success alone cannot provide. The harmonious fusion of failure and success requires us to abandon the false dichotomy between them. They are not opposites, but partners in the dance of achievement. Success without failure lacks depth and resilience. Failure without eventual success lacks purpose and direction. It is their integration, the ability to move fluidly between them, that creates sustainable achievement. Perhaps the most powerful psychological shift comes when we recognize that accepting failure isn't just instrumental to success, it's liberating in itself. The person who can fail without being devastated, who can separate their self-worth from their achievements, gains a kind of freedom that the success-obsessed person never knows. The fear of failure no longer controls their choices. The silent scream of potential rejection no longer inhibits their expression. Consider for a moment, what would you attempt if you knew you could not fail? Now consider a more powerful question. What would you attempt even if you knew failure was likely, but you trusted in your ability to learn and grow from that failure? Accepting failure as a key to success doesn't mean seeking failure for its own sake or lowering your standards. Rather, it means understanding failure's essential role in any meaningful journey. It means recognizing that the path to mastery is not a straight line, but a series of spirals, each bringing its own challenges, setbacks, and breakthroughs. Your freedom lies in embracing the totality of experience, both success and failure, as necessary components of a life fully lived. When you accept that failure is not your enemy but your teacher, not your judge but your guide, you liberate yourself from the psychological prison of perfectionism and fear. As we conclude, remember this: every significant human achievement rests upon a mountain of failure. The Wright brothers crashed countless times before achieving flight. Marie Curie endured years of failed experiments before her breakthrough discoveries. Gandhi's political campaigns often failed before his methods ultimately succeeded. What distinguished these individuals was not an absence of failure, but a relationship of failure that transformed it from an endpoint into a stepping stone. The key to success is not avoiding failure, but accepting it, embracing it, learning from it, and allowing it to strengthen rather than diminish you. Failure acceptance is the path to freedom. Failure acceptance is the path to growth. Failure acceptance is the path to success. If this perspective has shifted your thinking even slightly, I invite you to subscribe to The Wisdom of Human Nature, where we explore the psychological depths that shape our experience as humans. In our next video, we'll examine how to cultivate the resilience needed to bounce back from life's inevitable setbacks. Until then, remember, your next failure isn't something to fear. It's a necessary doorway to your next level of growth.